Welcome everyone for spending your Saturday morning here with us physically and virtually. We will start off today's forum with a visual presentation of our Obesity Center. All right, so before we start, I would just like everyone to come and squeeze into the center of the row and not leave seats in between you, so when people come in, they can sit at the sides, just not to interrupt the conference. So we have adopted a new Q&A session. Behind some of the chairs, there are some QR codes for you that you can scan with your phone and submit questions that you have. Those who are online, there will be a link on the conversation there to click and send us some questions that you might have. Okay, so let's start off with the first presentation. We would like to invite the director of our Obesity Center, Dr. Lee Pong Chin, to give the opening speech. Dr. Lee, please.
Thank you, Delsina. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our SGH Obesity Center Public Forum. I'd like to thank all of you for spending your precious time this Saturday morning with us. We used to hold this public forum very regularly, but our last one was in 2019, and we had a hiatus due to the COVID pandemic. So after 3 long years, it's very nice to finally see everyone here in person again. And for those of you who are joining us on Zoom, a very welcome to you as well, and thank you for joining us. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to thank the organizers for the event, Dr. Lee Zhenjing, our organizing chair, Jasmine, Angelina, and Cindy, who have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to put together this forum, and also the rest of the team for helping out at the event and for their support today. This is the first time we are conducting a public forum as a hybrid event, so please excuse us if there are any technical hitches, and also thanks to Kaylin and the PLS team for helming the Zoom platform today. I'd like to thank our industry partners, our main sponsors, Medtronic and Novo Nordisk, as well as our other sponsors for their generous support to make this event possible. And for all of you who are joining us today, 100% of your registration fees will be donated to SGH Needy Patients Fund. So thank you very much for your donation for this worthy cause. Okay, so I'd like to talk about the 4 M's of obesity. I think we all know that obesity is a very serious problem. WHO defines obesity as a disease with excess body fat accumulation that impairs our health, okay? So the excess fat can cause inflammation in our body and lead to metabolic complications, as you can see here. So conditions like stroke, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, various cancers, irregular menses, gout. These are all due to the metabolic effects of obesity. Now, the physical effects of excess weight can also put pressure on our joints. So our knees, ankles can be affected, osteoarthritis. The excess fat can impair our breathing, so sleep apnea is a major problem, reflux disease. It can affect circulation to our legs as well. And of course, mental health can be greatly affected by obesity, so with an impact on our psychological, social, functional well-being. And don't forget the last M, so money. Okay, all these diseases will take a lot of money to treat. And a recent study has showed that obesity and overweight in Singapore can cost 261 million in annual medical absenteeism costs. Okay, and the bad news is our obesity rates in Singapore continues to rise. Okay, from 8.6% in 2017, it's now come up to 10.5% in 2020. And this is not helped by the COVID pandemic. As we know, the necessary circuit breakers, the lockdowns, has led to reduction in physical activity, and a survey has shown that nearly 1/3 of Singaporeans have gained weight during the COVID pandemic. And our kids are not spared as well, okay? So the rise in cases in overweight kids, lack of outdoor play, all are very worrying trends. And as we all know, an overweight kid is very likely to be an overweight adult, and health problems are in store down the road. So I'd like to address one of the biggest myths in obesity, in that losing weight is very simple. Just look at the first law of thermodynamics. You just need to focus on energy in, energy out. All we need to do is to eat less, move more, get a negative energy balance, and the weight will just magically come off. So I think we all can agree, those of us who have tried to lose weight, it's not as easy as that. Okay, and I like to use this as an example. Some of you may have heard of or may have watched The Biggest Loser. This is a US reality TV program where the contestants go into a boot camp for 6 months, intensive diet, exercise program, and the person who loses the most weight wins the program, okay? So the person on the left here, his name is Danny. He won season 8. He lost about half his body weight. So sounds quite impressive, right? But when the US researchers followed these contestants up over 6 years, what they found was that virtually all the contestants regained weight. So 13 out of 14 had significant weight regain. In fact, 4 of them were heavier than before the competition. Okay, and what's the reason for that? Well, they made one very interesting finding, which is the contestants, nearly all of them had slower metabolisms after weight loss than they did 6 years ago, and burned fewer calories at rest. So if you look at Danny here, he now burns 800 fewer calories a day than expected for a man his size. So I'd like you to imagine if you have a twin sitting next to you, okay? Your age, your height, your weight, but that person used to be 30 or 40 kilograms heavier than you, okay? That person will be now burning a few hundred calories, 400-500 calories less than you, okay, just by doing the exact same thing. So obesity is not just as simple as eating less, moving more. So why can't we keep the weight off? Well, I've talked about the reduction in energy expenditure, the reduction in metabolic rate. Well, on the other aspect, our hunger increases as well. Okay, so after weight loss, studies have shown that our hunger hormone, ghrelin, increases. our satiety hormones, so hormones that make us feel full, such as PYY, CCK, GLP-1, insulin, leptin, decreases, and this leads to increased hunger, reduction in satiety or sensation of fullness. And this leads to an energy gap, okay? And this energy gap pushes us back to our original weight. So it's not just a willpower issue, it's not just a compliance issue, it's really physiological. Our body's physiology trying to get us to conserve our energy, conserve our weight. So what we really need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to try and bridge this gap, okay? So that we can have sustainable weight loss. And how can we bridge the gap? We need to be smart about our diet, okay, to reduce hunger. So increase in dietary protein, fiber, reduction in glycemic load, energy density. We need to also increase our energy expenditure to counteract the effects of a slowing metabolic rate after weight loss. And if that's insufficient, then we have got to consider other adjuncts to our lifestyle. So medications can be useful to help with weight loss. Bariatric procedures, bariatric surgery or endoscopic bariatric procedures can also be useful to help with weight loss. So really the theme of our forum is not just to have effective weight loss, but also sustainable weight loss over the long term. Okay, so we know that addressing obesity is complex, so we've got a very packed agenda. So a series of talks by our bariatric surgeon, dietitian, our psychologist, physio, on our endocrinologist, gastroenterologist, and we saved the best for last. We've got some patients coming in to share their experience, to walk us through their weight loss journey before we end with lunch. Okay, so with that, I've got the pleasure to introduce my first speaker. Our first speaker is Dr. Eugene Lim. He's a senior consultant, bariatric surgeon, who will be talking to us about don't wait for surgery. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
So nice to see all of you today. Good morning. I'm Dr. Eugene Lim, and I'm a surgeon who performs bariatric surgery. And my topic today is don't wait for surgery, but add in the bariatric surgery. So what is bariatric surgery? Bariatric comes from the word in Greek, it means weight. So we are dealing with weight and weight loss. It does not involve removing of fats from the body, but it operates on the stomach and the intestinal systems, okay, as I will show later. I will also explain what are the types of bariatric surgery that are available and what are the considerations you might want to ask. What are the indications, who is suitable, what are the expectations, how much weight can you lose, what can it treat? And what we are treating is not only the weight, but also the weight-related diseases. And this, when you're obese, you tend to get the three highs, right? The sun cow, diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. And I'll also show you some of what to expect after bariatric surgery. So this picture has been shown before, but it's good to show this again because it shows a fact that obesity affects the whole body, all right, from the head to the toe, practically. And sometimes bariatric surgery is called metabolic surgery, and this word metabolic is a very big word, right? What is metabolic? So I checked in the dictionary. Okay, metabolism means how the body uses the food and breaks down into energy. So some people can have a very high metabolic rate, and they break down the food faster, use the energy faster, and maybe that's how that they will lose more weight. But what we know is that bariatric surgery and the weight loss will result in improvement of a lot of diseases. As you can see, many cancers can be caused by obesity, and this can lead to prevention of cancer. Various organs can fail because of obesity, right? The heart, the brain, meaning the heart attacks, stroke, and as well as the lungs. We have sleep apnea. These are resolved with bariatric surgery. And most important, I think most studied is diabetes. It affects quite a lot of people, and we have a war against diabetes. And even now it's appreciated that even very low obesity rate levels, we can use bariatric surgery to treat diabetes. And which means that they go into remission and you don't need medication, and yet your sugar is well controlled. And this has been the most recent discovery in the last 10 years. Okay. Men and women can suffer from infertility, right? And especially in women who are obese with polycystic ovarian syndrome, they have irregular menses and cannot have a child. Obesity also can treat that, all right? And most of all, it increases the lifespan and the quality of life. So hence my title was, don't wait for surgery, don't wait for bariatric surgery. It's quite important for the young females who are in the fertile age. If they are unable to get pregnant, this may be an option, and this would help the young adult females who are seeking a partner and wanting to start a family. Sometimes quite hard for these very obese women to find a partner. So by treating it early, I think this is a good option. And I also wanted to show that the bariatric surgery has become very safe. Okay, so obesity is a very difficult disease to solve, and I think has been elucidated by Dr. Lee just now. Firstly, it has to be understood that obesity is a disease. It's not it is actual disease, just like diabetes or asthma. It's something that is a real disease that needs to be treated. It's not because of someone's lifestyle, as what the society thinks. There's a big stigma that we need to overcome. It's not because of just short of willpower, or not because someone is just lazy and refuses to exercise. Okay, there's a lot more that's involved. And often when you tell a person who's obese, just eat less and exercise more, a lot of times even the doctors in the primary care tell the patients that, but the majority will fail to treat their obesity. Okay, so and next we also, because it is a chronic disease, it keeps relapsing. As you can see, after you lose weight, you tend to gain more. We need a permanent solution, and bariatric surgery can help to solve this. And lastly, we're treating the diseases that the obesity is related to, as mentioned before. So before I go to the surgery, I will mention a procedure which is non-surgical. Does not require general anesthesia normally, but sometimes we do that if patients are at higher risk. So what is this? This is an intragastric balloon procedure. We are putting a balloon filled with water into the stomach, and it stays there. So it occupies the space and makes you feel full most of the time. All right. So you take less food, you will lose weight from that. Okay. This is done. Is it going forward? Okay. As you can see, the endoscope is placed, and we put the balloon in, and we fill it up. All right. And this balloon cannot stay there forever. This balloon, the SPATS balloon, is one of our sponsors today. It can be adjusted at the halfway mark, but needs to be removed at 1 year. Okay. Through another procedure, endoscopy. There's a newer balloon called the ellipse. It comes in like a capsule, and you swallow it, and you're awake, and we fill up the balloon there and remove it. And after about 4 months, it passes out of the body. And this can result in quoted about 10 to 15 kilograms, and sometimes more if a patient can exercise and diet. In the end, it's also a lot of persistence in that to maintain the weight loss. Okay. Then I also like to mention the adjustable gastric band, which has been popular for the last 20 years ago. Right now, it is fallen into disfavor because there are newer and more effective surgeries. Okay, and of late I've been removing more of these bands and converting it to sleeve gastrectomies, which is a new one. We're going to mention it later, and with much greater effect. So very simply, the two types of bariatric surgery that is most common now is called the sleeve gastrectomy on the left, and on the right, this is called the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and I'll just call it a gastric bypass later. Okay, the first is the sleeve gastrectomy, and what we are doing in this case is we are removing the outer part of the stomach and converting the stomach into a narrow tube, like a shirt sleeve. Okay, that's how the term comes. It's called, the real term is a vertical sleeve gastrectomy. And what this does is that there's a few theories. Well, of course, you have a restriction, so you cannot eat so much at one go. But at the same time, there is a faster transit, so food goes into your intestine faster, a bit like what the bypass does. And this creates a metabolic effect. Okay, again, a metabolic comes in, the word metabolism, and increases the metabolism. The part of the stomach and the fundus also secretes ghrelin, which is a hunger hormone, and this may help with the treatment as well. So for sleeve, we are expected to lose about 30% of your weight, okay, and it's also a metabolic procedure. It helps in your diabetes as well as all the other weight-related diseases. The main drawback of this procedure is that those with severe reflux and have some kind of change in the lining of the esophagus may not be able to receive this operation. Okay, but the benefit is that it is low complication. In fact, this is probably, if you ask me, is my favorite operation because it is low complication. It is performed very easily, and patients do very well with it. Okay, the gastric bypass is the next procedure which I want to show. What we are doing is we create a small gastric pouch at the top, and then we bring up the intestine to join it. So you can see when you eat, the food goes into the pouch, and because it's a small pouch, you will feel full faster and you can't eat so much. And the food then travels down the intestine very fast to produce the metabolic effect, or what we call the incretin effect, which are the group of hormones that are produced when you eat. And this creates satiety and a lot of other metabolic effects. The drawback of this operation is that you need to be on lifelong supplements, meaning vitamins and minerals, iron and calcium for life. There are also some complications that are seen in this operation. They're not seen in the sleeve, such as gastric ulcers and intestinal obstruction. But then again, on the whole, the complication is not very high, and it's almost the same as the sleeve. And so this is actually the gold standard a few years ago, but it has been surpassed. As you can see in this diagram, the sleeve has, in the States, is about 60% over, and the bypass about 30 to 40%. And combined, these two account for 90% of the procedures. In Singapore, it's the same when we did our survey. The number one is still a sleeve gastrectomy, where most people do. And in my practice, almost all primary, that means the first surgery I do for a patient with obesity is a sleeve gastrectomy, unless they have a very bad GERD or reflux disease. Okay, then the next is the Roux-en-Y, is the gastric bypass. So this slide just shows that how difficult and what are the factors, what are the forces that are affecting obesity and affecting our weight. As you can imagine, our weight is actually quite tightly regulated by our body. It's sometimes very hard to lose just 1 or 2 kilograms, and I know it is very hard. And sometimes people want to gain weight. It's also very hard to just gain, like, I want to gain a few more kilograms, so it's also very hard, right? So the body somehow detects this because we have our habits, we have our some people are taking medications that cause weight gain, and we may not have enough sleep, and due to our lifestyles, we have a lot of stress. Okay, so bariatric surgery helps to reduce this body mass set point, and sometimes we may need medications as well. All right. And these are just some of the mechanisms of how bariatric surgery works. Okay, I think the most important is probably the incretin effect, and as well as the restriction of how much you can eat. It increases your metabolism rate, so you are using the food you eat and faster. All right. So, but having said that, you still need to understand that after dropping the weight, you need to also maintain it, and this lifestyle comes into play. Lifestyle meanings you cannot eat anyhow, eat as much as you want again, and you should also exercise to keep the weight down. So who are suitable for surgery? There's the latest update this year by the international American and international bodies for bariatric surgery, and they recommend that instead of BMI of more than 40 with no medical problems, it dropped it to the second class, which is BMI 35. And those with more than BMI 30, with diabetes, for example, or some medical problem, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, they are suitable for surgery. In Asians, we minus 2.5 of that. So the lowest BMI that we consider is 27.5 with comorbidities. It also mentions that selected adolescents, meaning older children, like nearly teenage to the young adults, they would be suitable as well. And there's actually no age limit. Even some more than 65, under some special considerations, may be suitable. And the rest of the indications is written here, goes back to the first guideline back in 1991. You have to fail trying to lose weight, okay? And you have to be motivated and understand what is required. And you do not have any major issues such as psychiatric illness like that is not treated. Those who are suicidal, for example. Okay, and so just to show that we have a program here, and it's not only one is centered on the patient. And the good thing is that we have all in one center, so you don't have to go to different parts of the hospital for various treatment. So I would like to show, this is one of my patients who had an operation back before the COVID 3 years ago. And he's actually a staff of our hospital. So this was the first pictures before surgery. The second is the first week of surgery. So because it's keyhole surgery, they recover very fast. And they don't really need much painkillers. And they can even, they usually stay hospital nowadays for 1 night or sometimes 2 nights, and then they go home. The operation is also very fast. Okay, and he is really one of my model patients who has lost more than 30% of the weight. Actually, we normally quote 30%. And of late, he's been going to the gym almost every day and building muscle. So he's actually gaining weight, but yeah, okay. But yeah, that's actually muscles he's gaining. And this is another one of my patients that during the COVID time he had a surgery. And I just want to show you the drop in weight. And he started last year in July, starting about just a bit over 100 kilograms. And then he has lost gradually down to almost about 30%. So you can see most of it is, it's almost 30%. Okay, so these are just some testimony. He has lost, one of my patients has very happy, he stopped the diabetic medications the day after surgery. So how do you prepare? You need to see the bariatric surgeon. 2 weeks before the surgery, you go on low-calorie diet. I think that later on we'll explain more. An operation typically takes about 1 hour plus minus. Okay, and how much does it cost? 6,000 to 7,000 after government subsidy. All right, and most are MediSave claimable, so your actual outlay of cash is actually minimum, and some insurance may be able to cover it. Okay, that ends my talk. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Eugene. Just some housekeeping rules for electronic devices. Please keep them on the silent mode, okay? And if you are able to squeeze to the center of the stage, so that we leave some of the seats empty for latecomers to come in at the side. Okay, so next up we have Ms. Tan Aishan, our center's principal dietitian, who will inform us on eating right and staying light. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Aishan, and I'm the dietitian, one of the dietitian in at Obesity Center. And today I'm going to talk about eat right and stay light. So first of all, let's look at some background information. So we know that obesity continues to be a major national health challenge, and are strongly associated with diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. The relationship between health and body mass index is similar between Asian and Europeans. And Asian population have lower BMI, but they have higher total and central adiposity for a given body weight when compared with matched Caucasian, which make them at higher risk of developing metabolic diseases. And the onset of obesity-related complications occur at a lower BMI and a younger age. So let's look at some prevalence of obesity. We know that the prevalence has been increasing throughout the world population, but in Singapore, just now Dr. Lee showed this as well. So we know that the overall trend for obesity and overweight has been increasing since 1992. The latest data show that the proportion of obese and overweight adults were 8.7% and 36.2% respectively in 2017. So why do people want to lose weight? So what drives people to lose the weight is what will help them to keep it off. Some common reasons would be like to improve knee pain, to improve mood and fitness, and more than 50% of patients in our clinic cited health improvement as the #1 reason for wanting to lose weight. And other reasons include to improve appearance, to improve in symptoms of sleep apnea, to have more active social life, as well as to improve women's fertility. So the fact remains that a modest weight reduction in obese people is an attainable goal and often results in clinical improvement of various health-related parameters such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver, and so on. And how do we establish baseline measurement? So body fat is difficult to measure directly and accurately in clinical practice. Therefore, we use this body mass index, which is highly correlated with total body fat and future health risks, and is recommended as the ideal method of capturing body fat. However, we can also measure this waist circumference, and this waist circumference is clinically useful in assessing risk posed by body fat distribution. It is generally used as the standard in assessing abdominal versus peripheral fatness in an individual. Last but not least, we have this waist to hip ratio. So this is another method of determining abdominal obesity. And waist circumference, however, waist circumference is preferred because it is a better marker of abdominal fat and is easier to be performed in clinical practice. So now the question is weight loss, is there a magic bullet? So I believe that all of you would have an answer for this. Otherwise, you all wouldn't be here today. Yeah. So if there is a quick fix or magic bullet for weight loss, the problem of obesity would have been resolved many years ago. So when it comes to losing weight, there is no magic bullet. So a determined mindset and a real commitment to adopting and maintaining a more nutritious, reduced calorie diet and regular exercise are essential. So as mentioned by Dr. Lee just now, so let's say, for example, when we talk about weight loss, so kind of like technically it's related to this energy balance, yeah? So if we consume more energy than body need, this will lead to weight gain, and while burning more energy than consumed will lead to weight loss. In order to achieve a significant loss of weight, an energy deficit must be created and maintained. And theoretically, weight could be lost at a rate of 0.5 to 1 kilos per week based on a calorie deficit between 500 to 1,000 calories a day. Generally, diet that reduce calorie intake to about 1,002 to 1,005 in women and 1,005 to 1,008 in men will result in weight loss if they are adhered to perfectly. This is because such calorie levels will result in a calorie deficit for most overweight and obese adults. However, energy needs can vary widely based on factors such as age, body composition, physical activities, and current dietary habits. So the dietitian will work with you, let's say for people who want to lose weight, so the dietitian will work with you to plan an individualized dietary plan to the patient. Lifestyle intervention that combine diet modification and exercise with behavioral strategies remain the initial intervention of choice. So many dietary guidelines recommended a reduced calorie diet as the main component of weight loss intervention. And as mentioned earlier by Dr. Lee and Dr. Eugene, so although energy restriction or greater energy expenditure can lead to weight loss, recommending to eat less and exercise more alone will rarely be sufficient for successful long-term weight loss. So the quality of the diet, the macronutrient distribution, and psychological determinants are important in the control of obesity. And nutritional counseling should therefore be individualized to provide advice on achieving a reduced calorie diet that the individual can maintain in the long term. So for reduced calorie diet, so balance is the key. So as mentioned earlier, so this based on individualized requirement, and it is not advisable to exclude any food groups from your diet. So my healthy plate is a useful guide for this. And in order to achieve a long-term weight loss success, we want you to enjoy a good variety of food, and self-monitoring of dietary intake help individual to be more aware of the food intake and as well as portion sizes. Now let's look at some of these common thoughts that people may have with regards to diet and weight loss. So people often think that eating rice will make them put on weight. So yeah. So let's look at these calories. So where do we get calories from? So main source of calories come from fat, carbohydrate, and protein. And if as shown on this slide, so 1 gram of fat gives 9 calories, and 1 gram of carbohydrate gives 4 calories, and 1 gram of protein gives 4 calories. So if we compare among these 3 macronutrients, fat is the most energy-dense macronutrient. And when the fat content of a food is decreased, energy density also reduced. So in short, so added fat will increase the calorie of a specific food. And let's look at some, let's do some comparison over here. So we have this white rice, and then fried rice, as well as this nasi biryani. So if we look at the fat content and calories, so for white rice, so 0 fat, and then it gives around 260 calories. But let's say for those, if fat is added into the rice, definitely the calories will increase as well. So let's say, for example, for this fried rice, so around 20 grams of fat, and then it gives up to 500 calories. And for nasi biryani, so this referring to rice only, so because of this like added oil, so it contains around 10 grams of fat, and it push up the calories to 400 calories. So what I'm trying to say would be fat is the nutrient-dense macronutrient. So when people cut down carbohydrate food, which are high in fat, so technically they will be able to lose weight because they indirectly reduce the calorie intake as well. But yeah, so the quality of the carbohydrate food is important. And where do we find other fats from? So we have this visible fat, and we have hidden fat from many snacks. Let's say, for example, fries, chips, all these, they do have a lot of hidden fat. And irregardless of any type of fat, so all fat have the same calorie content, and we want you to watch your total amount of fat you eat and be calorie aware. And another thing that I would like to highlight here, because added sugar in beverages and food provide empty calories, and calories, which means that calories with little nutritional value. So these are names of added sugars that appear on food labels, and there are many different forms of sugar, and none is healthier than the other. So besides fats, so something that we would want you to kind of like modify from diet would be some food which are high in food or beverages which are high in sugar. So next, skipping meals is a good way to lose weight. So many of our patients, like when they come to see us, then they will skip their breakfast in order to keep their calorie intake within the allowance for weight loss. But in fact, so we do encourage a regular eating pattern, because this will help to keep your metabolism up and prevent you from getting too hungry and lost control and overeat at next meal. So there are some other like healthy eating behaviors that you can try to modify. So definitely eating slowly seems simple, but it will be some behavior that we want our patient to develop. So eating slowly can help to digest the food better, and you can be more aware of the level of fullness, and make sure that you do not overeat at your next meal. So our stomach take around 20 minutes to give the signal to our brain telling that we are full. So if you eat slowly, then you can be more aware of your level of fullness, and you can adjust or stop eating when you feel full, and this will help to control the calorie intake. And so many people with kids, often they will tend to clear or clean or eat all the food that their children couldn't finish. So this indirectly add on the calories also. So we advise that in terms, let's say for example, eating out with family, so try to order the food amount that the whole family can manage, and sharing within the family members to share out the calories, or that for those high calorie food will be one options to control the calorie intake. So next one, eating at night make me gain weight. So this is also a myth, because what you eat, not when you eat, make the difference. And calories have the same effect on the body no matter when they are consumed. And if you tempted to have a light night's bite, think about all calories that you have consumed throughout the day. So you, this will help to control your total calorie intake. Definitely, there are nowadays there are various dietary approaches to weight loss, such as specific diet that modify macronutrients distribution of a diet, meal replacement, or very low calorie diets, as well as these intermittent fasting. So overall, the principal finding is that all diets, regardless of the dietary approaches, are equally successful in promoting clinically significant weight loss, as long as there is a deficit in total calories and a high level of dietary adherence. However, many of the studies involving different of these dietary approaches were looking at a short-term effect. So for long-term weight loss and maintenance, so incorporating healthy eating habits and behaviors still the main key. And for sensible weight loss, so here let's look at the checklist. So definitely, if you want to lose weight, so you can get advice from qualified professional, and then we'll evaluate your weight status and identify why you have difficulties in achieving a healthy weight, and definitely set a realistic weight loss target. And subsequently, dietitian will provide an individualized diet plan, and definitely incorporating healthy eating behaviors would be important. and regular physical activities is important as part of this lifestyle modification to help you to achieve long-term weight loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Aishan. Next up, we have Miss Serene from the Department of Psychology to give her talk on healthy mind, healthy life. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Serene. I'm a psychologist working with the Obesity Center to look at patients with weight issues. So I'm looking at overall mental health issues during the pandemic. It's become a raising concern during this period of time, the last 3 years. We're also looking at how mental health issues are actually related to the obesity, and also a small segment on ways to cope with the various mental health issues that we actually mentioned over here. So as we all know, all of us agree that our life is very much disrupted during the pandemic, right? So quite a bit of things, and COVID-19 actually affected our life very much. So one thing is that isolation and separation from our loved ones. I remember not being able to visit my mom as much during that period of time, or we're not able to even go out and meet our friends for dinner. So all this isolation actually contribute to a lot of mental health wellness as well. So lots of freedom restrictions. The shops close about 10 o'clock, then we have to go home early. So we also have much lesser social activities and physical activities as well. Gym are affected as well. Increase of screen time, just in case you don't know, Netflix subscriber actually double up during the pandemic period. And now I think everybody is watching Netflix, right? So lack of privacy or personal space, in a way, we all live in a very busy city, right? So I also remember that at the time when we are at home, we can imagine that we are kind of together at home as family, at least a household of 5 or even 6, in a very small HDB. And all of us are just staying home trying to work things together. During this period of time, we also have juggle intense household demands. Example, if we're staying with elderlies, they might seeing us at home, may have more requests for us. And also those with children, juggling with children and work at the same time. These are actually difficult time during our even life right now that I remember my friends are still actually get to work from home. So some of the issues, distractions that we talk about actually contribute to the mental health issues that we have. Stress, depression, anxiety, which I will talk a little bit more about later on. Frustration, loneliness, definitely, as we are more isolated. Uncertainty, I think uncertainty is about when the pandemic will be over. When would I fall sick again? I remember I have a friend who fall sick 3 to 4 times actually in 7 months, COVID-19 itself. So we will talk about, wow, how unlucky you are that by chance you can fall sick so many times, and we don't know. And we also don't know what are the possible consequences after we get COVID-19. Are there any long-term consequences as well to our health itself? OCD. I have patients who are OCD are actually more obsessed about getting contamination with germs, even about falling ill. So they also get more obsessed about hand sanitizer. Now my friends, every time we have a meal or we even meet together, we shake hands with each other, we will take hand sanitizer and we keep using. So we actually get more worried about all these symptoms coming in. So I'll talk a little bit more about the 3 more common ones: stress, depression, and anxiety. Stress itself is one of the main issues that it's actually more apparent during that period of time. So this article that is actually talking about mental health and obesity during COVID-19 pandemic period, that's actually came out and revealed in this year, March 2022. Studies about this. Okay. It says that COVID-19 pandemic as a perfect storm to increase stress in the population. Stay-at-home order locally reduced the rate of COVID transmission, caused people to confine in our homes for a period of weeks or even months. A lot of people experience social isolation, loneliness due to the inability to meet friends or even having family gatherings. It's also not just about individually, but on the economy, disruptions in job loss. Some people actually are limited employment opportunities, resulting in significant financial stresses. Those that are able to work from home, like I said just now, also have additional stress in managing work as well as supporting our little children, especially the homeschooling. I remember where I have one patient telling me that he has 4 kids And then when he was homeschooled, the school was closed, he had to actually manage 4 children at home while working together with his wife. So he said he couldn't manage work, even with dad coming in. Yeah, and he had to take quite a bit of leave to be at home teaching the children and stuff like that. The same article also interestingly find that post-bariatric patients in Spain found that those who did not visit the bariatric clinic during the lockdown period compared to those who did were more likely to gain weight. The support at healthcare was limited during that period of time. Some patients who didn't come for follow-up appointments or being more regularly actually have more weight gain during that period of time. A rapid transition from in-person care to telemed itself also come with challenges. Not all patients are suitable for telemed, and also there's limited checks of what we can do for each individual as well. This article shows that during this period of time, the pandemic triggers 25% increase in prevalence of anxiety and depression worldwide. So Singapore included, we are one of them, which is why it brings a lot of concern about our mental health being during this period of time as well. So how are mental health issues actually related to obesity? Some of the common reasons of why people stop exercising: stress, very much linked to tiredness, lack of energy. I feel so stressed, I don't think I can do anything. I feel so stressed, I'm so busy with my work, I don't think I have time to even exercise. You know, I need to take care of my work, I need to take care of my family. Where do I find time for exercise? These are the reasons that people say. Loneliness is a barrier for exercise. What does it mean? Study shows that when we have like a exercise buddy, it actually helps us to frequent gyms or doing exercise together more frequently in the long term as well. Limited money, we mentioned about the pandemic having financial stresses, right? So with limited money, there's actually like less activities we can do, things that maybe we don't want to go out more frequently as well, to stay home to actually save up money. That's also could be a possible reason. Took too long a break. Often also one patients tell us that, often the reason patients tell us would be, during COVID, I was trying to start exercise and was trying to build momentum, and I got COVID. And I stayed at home for two weeks. And then my family started to take turns getting COVID. And because of that, we stayed at home for 1 month not doing anything. It's so hard getting back to the momentum of exercising and doing things together. These are some of the common things that we hear. Restrictions. Gyms closer here and there when we hear of people getting COVID. Even office at the same time, right? We hear of like, next week we cannot go back because one of them or 2 of them have a spread of COVID itself. So there's a lot of restriction, and we tend to stay at home more during this period of time, which reduce the physical activities. Some of the issues for poor eating habits, definitely stress, depression, anxiety, lead to unhealthy eating habits and emotional eating. We hear a lot about stress eating. We eat to self-soothe, we eat to make ourselves feel better, or even numb our feelings to a certain extent. Poor eating habits also exacerbated by more time spent at home with the presence of food stockpiling, more opportunity for snacking. I think one of the common things that we do right now, we do like Food Panda, Pandama. NTUC has also has online services, Red Mart, that is sent to our house. So we don't actually step out of our house, even go for grocery shopping right now. So it's a new challenge, isn't it? And on top of that, we kind of pile them and we kind of stock out a lot at home because we want to meet the minimum fee, right, to avoid delivery fee. So I think we might cost like $8 or $5 for delivery fee, right? So we're trying to have minimum there, and we pile a lot at home. So when we see the snacks at home all the time, the chance of eating it is higher. And also, when we're at home throughout, there's also increasing grazing, which is snacking throughout the whole day as well. Stress also links to poor sleep, linking to tiredness. When we're feeling tired, we don't feel that we have the energy to even do anything, which links to low physical activities, and sleep itself also affect our metabolic dysregulations. Another article will talk about the impact of COVID-19 stay-home orders on weight-related behaviors among patients with obesity. That's actually, the article is in 2020. So they actually have a survey of about 123 patients. People with obesity demonstrated greater percentage of change in weight-promoting behaviors during the COVID-19 compared to those in general public. What it means is people who tend to be obese actually tend to have more unhealthy behaviors with regards to weight increase. 63% of them eat in response to stress, 53% increased stockpiling, and find it harder to adhere to diet plans. Among the people with obesity, this is actually a research done in Houston. Nearly 30% gained significant weights during the COVID-19 pandemic period due to the mental health issues. The three common ones, actually stress, anxiety, depression, lack of sleep, that we have mentioned. 80% of respondents reported difficulties in weight management. Early 30% gained more than 5% of their weight, and 14.6% gained more than 10%, with those who are more severely overweight gaining more. So just now, our center director, Dr. Lee, mentioned that 1/3 of the Singapore general public actually increased weight during the pandemic period, right? And also what it means is people who are more severely overweight tend to have more unhealthy habits regarding exercise and regarding eating as well. This is an overall summary of what I have talked about. Disruptions to our individual life, disruptions to the community itself and the healthcare system actually contribute to increase in stress, anxiety, and depression, which reduce the physical activities level, increase stress eating, increase poor quality diet, and also increase sedentary behavior, which outcome will be weight gain. So some of the interventions to improve physical activities during this period of time, what the challenge was actually asking the patients to go for exercise because of a lot of disruption and everything. And research actually shows that it's actually better to reduce the sedentary behavior by asking them to introduce some light intensity activities. Could be just pacing around at home rather than just sitting and lying around. Okay, issues mini breaks have benefits to both mental health as well as physical activities. Especially when we work from home the whole day, some of patients actually say that, they start to work very early and they end work about 1 or even 2 a.m. because now at home, right, they just feel that it's very difficult to manage the task at home and they end up working even longer. So we tell them, how about taking mini breaks as well? Just to help us clear our mind a little bit, get a little bit of rest. Mini breaks could be just pacing around, doing certain things. Build shorter and more frequent periods of physical activities. Could be 10 minutes of exercise, 2 to 3 times a day. Often we will let patients know that perhaps after each meal, we can just take a 5 to even 10 minutes kind of walk. 5 to even 10 minutes of exercise. To me, is have some rather than nothing. Okay. Some of the, also regards to emotional eating, some of the common ways that we do, actually we do practice this with our patients when we see them for consultation in our clinic. One is mindfulness. We talk a lot about mindful eating. Mindfulness is actually itself about identify and acknowledge our unpleasant emotion, which could be stress, could be depression or anxiety, rather than trying to relieve them through unhealthy eating behaviors, through impulsive eating itself. Just now, our dietitian Aishan also mentioned about some things about eating slower, because our brains actually take about 20 minutes to register what we're eating. That eating slower, being able to fully focus on our food itself is part of mindfulness, because we are mindful about what we're eating, we are mindful about whether the food is good for our body, we are mindful about how much we actually enjoy the meal. Because the meal is so yummy, right? We want to spend our time knowing that, hey, we are loving that meal, rather than we're just eating mindlessly and we don't even know and we just finish like all the food that we have. Self-compassion. Self-compassion is about being kind and non-judgmental towards ourselves, in a particularly towards our own mistake or our own weaknesses. We are not perfect. All of us make mistakes as well. And it's really about showing ourselves some kindness, knowing that it's all right to make mistake. It's all right to be busy at work. It's all right to not even complete our work on time, maybe because of a lot of reasons. Having some kindness and self-compassion to ourselves rather than eating to self-soothe, for example. Emotion regulation is actually one of the more common ones that we do share with our patients, which is actually distress tolerance skills. How can you self-soothe? How can you feel better apart from eating? Is eating the only way to help ourselves feel better? A lot of times, physical activity is not necessarily long and intensive exercise, but small ones could make us feel very achieved, have a sense of achievement, fulfillment. The small one itself will also make us feel better on its own. Research again shows that some of these methods is helpful to bypass the typical pitfalls of feeling depressed, feeling anxious, rather than slip into our unhealthy behaviors, and how to stay on track on our healthy eating plans. These are some of the references. Thank you for, I was passed on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Serene. Now next we have Miss Irene Chu, one of our senior physiotherapists, to share with us in getting active and how it helps weight loss. Thank you.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Irene, one of the physiotherapists from the group. So I think we've all had a long morning. Before we start, I'd just like to invite all those who don't have any shoulder conditions, let's do a simple stretch together, okay? So you can stay seated or you want to stand up, that's fine, all right? So, okay, I see someone already starting, so let's just do it together, all right? So form a C with your left hand. Okay, great. Now stretch all the way up to the ceiling. Very good. Hold it there and then form a C with your right hand. Bring it all the way up as well. Take in a deep breath. Form a heart shape. Bring it to your chest. And send some love to the person next to you. Okay. So I hope that little exercise or little movement put a little bit of smile on your faces. So I'll just move on to my talk right now. So basically today I'll be addressing the most common problems that you might have. Whether physical activity is effective for weight loss, and if you have various conditions, is it safe? And last but not least, how do we find time in this highly stressful and fast-paced modern living in order to fit in some simple workouts? Okay. So I think you've heard about this quite a lot today. These are all the various options in terms of weight management. And right at the bottom of the pyramid, you'll see the largest section made up by our lifestyle changes, diet and physical activity. So that means that regardless of what route you take, that forms the foundation to actually having optimal long-term outcomes, okay? To be more exact, research has found that physical activity has modest effects on weight loss. And what we mean is just probably about 2 to 3 kgs most of the time. And for those who exercise a huge amount on a weekly basis, you might see 5 to 7.5 kilogram changes, okay? And separately, they also found that physical activity is actually one of the most important predictors of long-term weight loss maintenance, meaning how well you keep the weight loss after you've actually lost them. So this is one of the common questions that we get asked. Some people exercise daily, but they fail to actually lose weight or they even gain weight. So why? Like we said, it's actually a very complex disease, obesity, and it's really not governed by just a single factor like exercising regularly. So for these people, I would say it's possible that they might be eating more after the workout because they felt hungrier. Another thing is that they felt that they've done their exercise for the day, so they move much lesser throughout the day as well. And last but not least, for some cases, they are gaining muscle mass, like you can see in one of Dr. Eugene's patients who exercised quite a fair bit after his surgery. So why do we want to lose weight? So we might be very focused on this missing part of the puzzle right now, but in the grand scheme of things, I think what we want is usually beyond that simple number on the scale. It could be to manage your certain conditions like high blood pressure. It could be just getting fitter and stronger so you can run after your kids or grandchildren. Or maybe some people just want to feel more energetic in general. And with that, that brings me to what we do on a daily basis, trying to get people to move more, because that movement is medicine itself, okay? So you can see the many benefits that are here, and this happen regardless of whether you achieve any weight loss in the first place, okay? So this is one strong reason why we sell this. And in Singapore, where everything is so expensive, movement is free and also refillable, okay? All right. And apart from that, I'm proud to say that we do have some physical benefits that are unique to being more active alone. So if you're looking to get stronger and get fitter, it's not something that just comes with losing weight or taking certain medications. There's no magic pill for it. You do have to put in some effort in order to get to what you would like to achieve. And this brings me to the next part of the presentation. Is it safe when you have this list of chronic conditions that might be listed here, or maybe something more? The fact is that anyone can and will benefit from some form of physical activity as long as it's appropriate to your individual level. So if you think about someone who just went through knee replacement surgery or someone who just had a stroke, while they are even in hospital, we get them up and moving, doing some form of activity. So if they can, why not when these are chronic conditions that might be with us for a significant time in our life? So some of you might also pose me a question about having joint pains. Is it okay to start getting active only after you lose the weight? Because probably the weight loss might improve your pain. The truth is that losing weight may not always resolve your joint pain. So it might get better, but it may not completely go away as well. And the other thing is that if we avoid activity for a prolonged period of time, it leads to this vicious cycle that we call the deconditioning cycle, meaning that you don't do the things, you get weaker, joints get stiffer, and then it sort of leads to more pain as you try to do other things. And then this whole cycle just reinforces itself. So what we want to do here is actually to break the cycle, so not by completely avoiding movement, but by modifying what we do and maybe progressing what we do more gradually so that you can deal with these problems as we go along. And then, of course, it would be advisable for you to seek help from your doctor or from your physiotherapist if you're already seeing one. See what we can assess and do to manage your pain better at the moment. So this is essentially what we talk about when we say physical activity. It's just any movement that requires energy. So just sending that heart just now, it does use up a little bit of energy as well. So there are two main kinds. Incidental activity, what we do on a daily basis, just moving around, walking from point A to B. And then, of course, structured exercises, which probably needs a bit of expertise and a certain dosage that we are talking about in order to get the benefits for your health and fitness. So if you're not sure about structured exercise, you can always leave it up to us when you see us, when we'll go through that with you. But on your own, most of us are already okay to do some form of incidental activity. So how do we actually try and fit that in? Okay, I have 3 simple tips for you to get started. So first of all, we do need to recognize that actually sitting all day is already harming us. A few years back, there was this news saying that sitting is the new smoking. That's because they found out that people who sat more than 8 hours a day had a similar mortality, which means dying rate, as compared to those who were smoking as well. So, some postulations, probably because sitting too long is actually associated with increased waist circumference, blood pressure, blood glucose, as well as your cholesterol levels. So tip 1 would be to try and reduce these activities. So we need to first identify what they are. For some of us, it may be because of our desk-bound work. Then we have limited options to change it in a sense. But for others, it could be spending long hours in front of the TV or laptop watching Netflix. And then some of us like reading or activities that are a little bit more sedentary, like knitting. So those are the potential things that we can actually improve on. And step 2, just introducing a simple break, taking a 2 to 3 minutes light walk, like what Serene suggested, okay? It's recommended that you do that after every 20 minutes of sitting. And then step 3, if you're ready to do a bit more, you might want to find something more active to replace those activities on a regular basis. Tip number 2, the only way to make it sustainable is when it sort of becomes a habit. So find simple ways to incorporate activities into your daily routine. For those who still go marketing, perhaps instead of going once a week and buying in bulk, you might want to take separate trips every single day. If you're at work or just at home, take regular water breaks, walk to the kitchen and back. And also, if someone's calling you on the phone, just try to pace around and clock a few more steps. And then for those who needs to travel from one place to another, try your best to take the stairs instead of the escalator or the lift. And also try to alight a few bus stops earlier or park further and try to walk back to where you're supposed to go to. And I do admit that at the start, you might need to be more intentional, and that includes setting some alarms to actually limit your sitting. So when we first try to introduce one or two things, we naturally think that we're doing a lot. I'm becoming more active, that's what we think. But the only way to objectively know is if we really measure it. So one way to do it is via your free step trackers from Health Promotion Board. Alternatively, if you have your phone with you all the time, you can actually download one of the free apps to do that. So if you see the icons here, those who have iPhone already have the health app, which is the one with the heart. And then Samsung, there's also a health app that's inbuilt in your phones. And for the other brands, you might consider downloading one of the free pedometer apps to do that instead. Okay. And at this point, I'd just like to mention that honestly, 10,000 steps may not be for everyone, especially if you have certain joint conditions or some deformities that will really worsen if you do too much. So I'll encourage you to just monitor your step count for a couple of days and then try to gradually increase that target. So for example, I'm at 3,000 per day this week. I'll set a target to get it up to 3,500 or 4,000 every day next week, and then monitor whether some of my symptoms actually worsen before I decide whether to progress or not. And then tip number 3 is to implement what I call exercise nuggets, so not McDonald's nuggets, all right? They're simple, bite-sized exercises that you can do anytime, anywhere, without any special equipment. So I'll give you some examples here. So for the chest and arm muscles, you can try to do some wall push-ups. And then as a progression to that, you can do it against a steady table or even on a park bench. That will be an incline push-up. To do a shoulder press, you can just grab your backpack, fill it up with some things, or maybe just a heavy book. Just raise it up above your head and back. And then as a progression, you move it from side to side to do an alternating overhead press. And then you can do a seated march, which can then be progressed to a standing march. And then for your legs, just a sit-up, stand up and sit down exercise, which you can then progress to a seated squat where you lower yourself slowly towards the chair without really putting your weight onto the chair. So these are just some ideas that you can implement. I wouldn't say that's a correct number that you can do. It could range anywhere from 5 to 15 each time you do it. And you could be looking at maybe 3 or 4 times a day when you take your work breaks. So if you're ready to start exercising, these are the exercise guidelines. I think they're pretty much everywhere. So just briefly, aerobic exercise is anything that gets your heart pumping faster. So big movements like cycling, swimming, brisk walking, or even some kind of sports like badminton. And it's recommended that you do that 150 minutes per week. And then on the other hand, we're doing some muscle strengthening exercises at least 2 days a week. And you could be using your body weight, some dumbbells, or even resistance bands. So for those who need a little bit of ideas, there's actually lots of free content out there. One of them is by Health Promotion Board. Just search them on YouTube. And they have a range of videos that cater from a beginner to actually an advanced level. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'd just like to reiterate a few points. Physical activity may not be maybe just an adjunct in weight management because it's not excessively powerful in terms of promoting weight loss, but it actually offers us a lot more for your health. And it is the only way that we can actually build up some strength and improve our stamina. And last but not least, don't be stressed just because you cannot meet that 150 minutes or that 2 days a week. Some physical activity is actually better than none at all. So that few minutes that you move around is actually better than just sitting. Okay, and that will be all. Thank you for your kind attention.
All right, thank you. So thank you for all this informative presentation. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. So let's welcome all the speakers back on stage for a short Q&A session. You can either post your questions through one of the microphones that we'll bring around the room, or you can actually scan the QR code at the back of the chairs to submit your questions. For those who are online, there is a link for you as well to just ask your question there. Right. right, so we have some questions already, so we'll just get the ball going. So the first question, probably to the dietitian, are alternative meats examples like impossible meat a good source of protein for vegetarians?
Yeah, so for this question, so definitely this impossible meat is one of a good source of protein for people who do not eat meat or animal products. But it's just that this impossible meat is considered as processed food. So in terms of sodium and then potassium, phosphate, all that would be quite high. So depending for people who have, let's say, like hypertension or kidney problems, so this may not be a good alternative for them.
All right, thank you. I guess the next question again goes to you. So it was said that skipping food is not encouraged. What's the panel views on intermittent fasting since it's a new thing?
Okay, so for intermittent fasting, so there are the research done, and the evidence show that intermittent fasting may help with weight loss in short term, but all of these evidence or research are based on short-term in duration. So in terms of the long-term effects, so we still do not know that. And for this intermittent fasting, so let's say, for example, if they do intermittent fasting, but they are not controlling their total calorie intake, so this may not help with weight loss also. So, and then for long-term weight loss, it's important to make dietary or lifestyle changes or modification rather than, for long-term impact.
All right, thank you. The next question is for Dr. Lee. So for gastric bypass surgery, connecting the stomach directly to the small intestine, is there a certain dietary restrictions after the surgery, such as fatty food, that cannot be consumed?
Yep, so that's a great question. I think a lot of our patients do ask, not just for gastric bypass, but also after sleeve, what kind of diet can I eat after the surgery? Do I have got to be on a very restrictive diet? So the answer is you can actually enjoy most of the foods that you used to eat, okay, before surgery. It's just that the amount of food that you'll be eating is a lot less. And it's not really because you feel restricted, the person feels restricted. It's because the satiety increases, so the hunger goes down. So earlier I mentioned about all these hormones, the GLP-1, PYY, etc. These hormones are all changed after bariatric surgery, and as Dr. Eugene also has mentioned. So after gastric bypass, the majority of the stomach and the duodenum has been bypassed. So food doesn't go through the usual gastrointestinal tract. And it hits the small bowel a lot quicker. So certain foods will not be advisable after gastric bypass, such as simple sugars. Because when people have sugars or simple carbohydrates after gastric bypass, the GLP-1 levels go up very quickly. And that can sometimes lead to dumping syndrome and hypoglycemia, so low blood sugar. And the reason for that is because when GLP-1 levels goes up, the insulin levels sometimes can go up, and that causes the sugar levels to go down. And the person may feel dizzy, hungry, blurred vision, etc. So there are certain foods that needs to be cautioned, and our dietitians will be giving advice to our patients during the post-op follow-up as well.
All right, thank you. Well, the next question is, can a person of a BMI of about 32 enroll into the patient and SGH Obesity Center?
Maybe I'll answer that as well. So in our obesity center, as you can see, we have got a multidisciplinary team because obesity is a very complex disease. So our dietitians, physio, psychologists, bariatric surgeon, gastroenterologists, endocrinologists, bariatric nurses, pharmacists, we've got the gym, etc. So it's a very comprehensive service that we offer, and we aim to see patients with the more severe spectrum of the disease, either with a higher BMI or even they have a lower BMI with medical problems that were mentioned earlier, so fatty liver, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. So we welcome patients with BMI over 30, okay, and if they've got medical problems, then sometimes a lower BMI as well. So encourage you to speak to your doctor, so either from polyclinic or your regular GP, and they can assess you and then make the appropriate referral as necessary.
All right, thank you. Well, the next question is probably to Dr. Lim. So, for the gastric balloon, will the balloon burst?
Yeah. Okay, so typically we will fill this balloon with blue color fluid. Okay, and this is such that to preempt the patient if the balloon bursts, and so there, of course, there is a risk, but the risk is very small. Okay, it's quoted to be 1 in 200, so it's less than 1%. And personally, I haven't seen one balloon that has burst in my practice. But we color the fluid blue so that if it bursts, it will be absorbed and then you'll pass out and your urine will turn color. So you'll know of that, and then you need to have it removed. There is a small risk if it bursts that it migrates down into the intestines and cause an obstruction. So this will need to be removed. But this is very rare, and I actually haven't seen one case yet.
All right, thank you. I guess the next question is again for Dr. Lim. For a sleeve gastrectomy surgery, how will the low-calorie diet be like for the 2 weeks before and after the surgery? And is the clear soup or blended food allowed?
Maybe dietitian.
Yeah, okay, sure. So for sleeve surgery, or even for bypass, patients will be on this very, very low-calorie diet for 2 weeks. So during this period of time, the calories allowed will be around 800 calories. So usually we'll use a meal replacement to make sure that our patients still meet their protein and other vitamins and minerals requirement. So mainly will be on liquid diet, but pureed or blended diet will be next stage. Let's say, for example, this liquid diet will be 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after surgery. And then eventually the progression will be pureed blended diet and then and subsequently soft diet. Yep.
All right, thank you. The next question is, I'm a diabetic, overweight, and have sedentary lifestyle. How do I overcome the inertia of get healthier? So for me, the psychologist.
I think when we think about, there's so much changes I need to do in my life, right? I need to lose 20, 30 kg or even more. I need to improve my diabetes condition. I need to improve other health condition. We've become very stuck on the mindset that there's so many changes that we need to do. I think the initial one will be think about what is one simple, healthy change that you can do into your life. Could I want to take walks as simple as 10 minutes walk more every day? Do I just want to eat maybe one healthier meal a day? Could be, doesn't have to be like extreme, like, oh, I must eat salad in a simple day. Could be maybe just very simple, having more vegetables in my diet. Could be that initial way. And I think it's to experience the success of sustaining our healthy behavior, and slowly after having 1 or 2 weeks of some certain behaviors, you can slowly go gradually including more and more of those healthier behaviors into part of our life. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the next question is probably to the physiotherapist. So due to my workload, I'm not able to exercise in the gym regularly, but to cram it on the weekends and Saturday and Sunday. Is that fine?
I would say generally that's not something that we recommend. We call this the weekend warriors. So they might be sedentary the whole of the week and then trying to do a little bit more on the weekends. But I would say if that's the best that you can manage, we can try and mitigate the risk of getting injuries or just getting too much muscle soreness by just moderating your exercises on the weekends. So cardio exercises or aerobic exercises are generally quite okay. Just watch the duration that you're doing. But if you're doing any form of muscle strengthening exercises, especially with heavier weights, try not to do them on consecutive days because you do need that break for the muscles to have a rest. And then, of course, for the rest of the week, even just 5 to 10 minutes that you can accommodate, do something simple at home or just outdoors before you get home.
All right, thank you. So the next question is, part of reducing weight is to reduce food intake, but how do I do this to hit the required nutritional intake?
So when for weight loss, reduced calorie diet, it doesn't mean that you can't meet your nutritional requirement. So as I mentioned earlier, this reduced calorie diet, we do not encourage you to skip any of the food groups. So let's say like if based on the plate, My Plate, My Healthy Plate, we have carbohydrate, protein, vegetables and fruits. So definitely for weight loss, you still need all these food groups, but how are you going to choose a healthier options with a lower fat, a lower calories and less sugar? So this will be something that the dietitian will work with you, but definitely you'll be able to meet the nutritional requirements while you are on reduced calorie diet for weight loss.
All right, thank you. Does anyone in the audience have a question? You can raise your hand. We can pass you the microphone if there is. Gentleman over there.
Sorry, I missed out the first part. I'd like to ask the panel of doctors, right, and professionals, microbiome and in terms of microbiome of our gut health, in relation to metabolic health. What is your panel's opinion on that? Microbiome, I guess you know, and microbiome of our gut health in relation to metabolic health or metabolic syndrome. What is your opinion on that? And also the other question I'd like to ask, I think the panel have been focusing on weight loss and weight gain, right? So the other question I'd like to ask is body composition. That means you're standing on a bioimpedance equipment like Omron, right? So you measure body your bioimpedance. So you have, generally you see the visceral fat. So, and body fat, right? So then the skeletal muscles. So this part I don't see was touched at all. So can I ask, of course my first question is still back to the microbiome, right, and the metabolic health in relation to that. So what's the doctor's opinion on that?
Sure. So thanks for the question. So I think we are getting more increasing understanding of the gut microbiome. It's certainly a very, very important aspect of our body. I think, in fact, the number of cells in the bacteria outnumber our human cells by probably more than 10 times, okay? And we know that after, for example, bariatric surgery, our gut microbiome changes significantly, okay? When they look at the type of bacteria in the gut before, after surgery, it changes, okay? And a lot of confounding factors are also there. So whether it's the food that changes the gut microbiome, we know for sure, you know, if you have a different diet, the gut microbiome changes. Or is it the gut microbiome that also leads to weight loss? So there are studies ongoing looking at fecal microbiota transplantation, so FMT, okay, in animals as well as in humans, to see whether we can use the gut microbiome as a treatment for obesity. So to your second question on bioimpedance analysis, we do it here in our center, but there are caveats, I must say. Number one, we input certain data like height, weight, age, ethnicity, things like that into that. And that alone, and of course, that alone gives about 80% of the variability. Then after that, we shoot in a very mild electrical current to check the conductivity of our tissues. And based on that, we estimate body fat, okay? So it can be affected by many factors. So hydration is one of them. If a person is dehydrated, that changes the fat percentage you get. So you have to be aware of that. I mean, the gyms have it, a lot of clinics have it. So earlier, Aishan mentioned about another marker for body composition, which is our body anthropometrics, our hip, waist circumference, and that is also a very good marker for prediction of cardiovascular disease. So a simple measure, measuring the waist and the hip to get a waist-hip ratio. Okay, so there are different ways to calculate, but if you want the most accurate way to calculate our body fat, we've got to go for a DEXA scan. So it's actually an X-ray to quantify the body fat, and that's currently used primarily for research. I think from a clinical setting, looking at your height, weight to get a BMI, and then your waist and hip circumference, that's already very useful clinical parameters that we can act on. Okay, but thanks for your questions.
I came across a study, University of Queensland, right, on anthocyanin. Also on rats, right? That was done a number of years ago. You can available on YouTube. You guys can take a look. So with anthocyanin input, the rats became healthier. So of course, it's in the lab environment. You see, of course, to many doctors, anthocyanin is supplement, right? But it came from fruits like pomegranates and all that. So in the infusion of anthocyanins to these rats, the rats became healthier. So it don't show the metabolic syndrome at all.
Sure. Thanks for the comment, but we will need to see whether that translates across to human trials. Okay, I think we've got a question at the back.
Yeah, I would like to know what defines a ketogenic diet? How is it different from a low-calorie, high-fat diet? Is it healthy? Do you recommend it?
Aisha?
Okay, so for ketogenic diet, so definitely there are various types of ketogenic diet, but mainly they focus on like very high protein and high fat and low carbohydrate. So definitely there are some research showing that this diet helped with controlling weight in a for short term. But it's really like back to this ketogenic diet, it's really depending on, because the fat, the protein and fat content from the meals could be quite high. So whether this fat, are you getting those like healthier type of fat, or those like not that healthier type of fat? So this eventually may affect the a person's like lipid profile and this kidney profile as well. So back to your question. So let's say definitely there are some research in short term showing that this diet help with weight loss, but it's really need to be careful if you want to start with this diet, and you need to talk to your doctors and your dietitian before proceed with this, and especially for people with other medical conditions like diabetes or that. So this diet may not be advisable for them because of high risk of getting other complications.
All right. So thank you for the sharing session. Due to time constraints, we are unable to answer all the questions now, but there will be another Q&A session later on as well. But now we shall go on a short break because we've probably seated for too long and short breaks are good. So please visit the various booths outside by our allied health professional. You can take your body impetus assessment as well, but however limited to about 50 participants due to space limitation. There's also a sponsors booth that you can have a look to see what products are available. And for those online, we will start our second session at 11 o'clock, okay? For the committee, just come forward to take a group photo as well. Thank you.